Hot, Netflix internal lawyer leaks shareholders discussing to sue Meghan, tried to claw upfront money back. Today, a source reveals, she just made it to Tel Aviv and had a Netflix internal lawyer sitting next to me. She wouldn't say too much, but she doesn't care for Meghan and Harry. They made more off Netflix than what is in the public domain. She said that they won't be back at all. When they signed with Netflix, it was the same deal as Spotify. The big bucks were completely dependent upon quality content production. They've produced very little and nothing of any real quality. Point being, unlike Spotify, they were paid up front by Netflix, and now as multiple-year deal annulled, Netflix is asking them to refund 2/3 of the money. If not, they're likely to be sued. The source also leaks that every single shareholder is also arguing with Netflix for failing to uphold their fiduciary duty. The reported $150 million Netflix deal was believed to be paid in installments, but Netflix bosses broke rules to pay the Sussexes up front well over $100 million, despite neither of them having any executive producing experience at all. Meghan is committed to them creating various projects, but she has nothing to say right now. These contracts are inherently paid out with work in process tranches tied to the completion of very specific output metrics. Netflix contracted for numerous projects which were supposed to feature documentaries, family-friendly shows and films, and other scripted projects. It's not realistic that Ted Sarandos would behave this irresponsibly, yet still remain in charge. Netflix could sue Harry and Meghan for failure to perform. The platform is trying to claw some of that money back, but the threat of a shareholder class action lawsuit based on gross financial negligence would be a greater deterrent. The Harkles would also not be hard up for cash if this had happened, when clearly they are. The part where a Netflix lawyer said Netflix doesn't like them is credible. It's the paying them the over $100 million for numerous projects when they've only created one. Elsewhere, it's also been reported that Netflix is unlikely to renew the Sussexes' multi-million-dollar contract, believing the lemon has been fully squeezed. Bosses are said to now feel Meghan lives in her own bubble and doesn't seem to have grasped the economic reality. There's a less friendly attitude from some at the top. The feeling is that the lemon has been fully squeezed, the source said. Meanwhile, GB News presenter Dan Wootton has now claimed that he's been told by a source that Netflix are now reconsidering their own deal with the Sussexes. As he spoke on the Clash segment of his nightly show, Wootton said his information came from an unnamed top Hollywood source. Wootton said, "Quote me on this, I'll be proven right within a few weeks or a few months. Netflix wants to follow Spotify out the door and dump the Sussexes." On Friday, we reported the collapse of the £18 million podcast deal the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had with Spotify, as a couple claimed they'd reached a mutual agreement to axe the contract after just one season of the show. The exclusive deal between Spotify and Harry and Meghan's production company Archie Audio saw the streaming giant secure Markle's audio series Archetypes, and was considered one of the biggest agreements in podcast history.